In Part 1, we uncovered the fires, wars, and tragedies that scarred the start of 1904. If you missed Part 1, click the card above to catch up. Trust me, it's worth it. Now, in Part 2, we head deeper into a year marked by rebellion, invention, and catastrophe. 10 moments you were never taught in school, but each helped shape the world we live in today. Let's begin. January 1904. A genocide starts in silence, and the world looks away. It began with a spark in the Namibian desert, a rebellion the Germans never saw coming. On January 12, 1904, the Herero people rose against German colonial rule, reclaiming stolen land with sheer courage. But Germany responded with something darker, a policy not of war, but of extermination. Tens of thousands of Herero were driven into the desert, where water holes were poisoned and escape routes sealed. It became one of the 20th century's first genocides. Survivors were enslaved, branded, and used for medical experiments. And yet, for decades, this atrocity was left out of textbooks, silenced, forgotten, until now. On February 12, 1904, a quiet Irish diplomat set off a political explosion. His name was Roger Casement. He had been sent by the British government to investigate reports of abuse in the Congo Free State, King Leopold's so-called humanitarian colony. Casement's report was horrifying. Men mutilated for missing rubber quotas, children orphaned by violence, entire villages burned to enforce production. Casement didn't just document facts, he took testimonies, photos, and drew maps. His report ran over 40 pages and stunned Europe. The fallout was massive. International outrage forced Leopold to relinquish control. Casement had exposed the truth behind the empire's lies, but the scars remained. What Casement revealed would echo through history and stain the name of Leopold forever. On February 17, 1904, the curtain rose in Milan for what Giacomo Puccini hoped would be his greatest triumph, Madama Butterfly. But just minutes into the performance, disaster struck. Boos erupted. Some even laughed. The audience wasn't ready. The mix of Japanese setting, tragic themes, and cultural clash fell flat. Puccini was humiliated. Critics called it a catastrophe. But he wasn't finished. In secret, Puccini rewrote the opera. He tightened scenes, deepened emotions, and waited. When Madama Butterfly returned just 3 months later, it soared. The same opera, now a masterpiece. Sometimes, failure is the first step toward immortality. Paris, May 21, 1904. In a modest room near the Arc de Triomphe, 7 nations gathered to change the future of sport forever. Representatives from France, Belgium, Denmark, the Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, and Switzerland signed the papers that gave birth to FIFA. There were no roaring crowds, no television, just a quiet ambition to unify the world through football. At the time, football was barely organized. Different nations played by different rules, but these men believed in a global game. FIFA's creation didn't make headlines that day, but it planted the seed for 1 billion hearts to beat in sync across language, race, and borders. From that quiet room in Paris came the world's most popular sport. FIFA had begun, with just 7 voices and a dream. On June 15th, 1904, families boarded the General Slocum for a Sunday school picnic, mostly women and children from New York's Little Germany. Laughter echoed across the East River. Just 30 minutes into the trip, someone saw smoke. Within seconds, flames tore through the wooden decks, and panic spread faster than the fire. The life vests were fake, stuffed with disintegrating cork dust. The lifeboats, painted to the deck, never used. It was a death trap. Desperate mothers threw babies into the river, hoping they'd survive. But most couldn't swim, and the heavy dresses pulled them under. The Slocum sank near North Brother Island. By the end, over 1,000 were dead, mostly children. It was the deadliest disaster in New York until 9/11. The city mourned, but blamed the wrong people. The captain escaped justice, and Little Germany was never the same again. If you've made it this far into 1904's forgotten history, you're exactly the kind of person who loves stories history nearly forgot. So, if you're still with us, tap that like button, drop us a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps these lost stories find their way back into the light. It was called a diplomatic mission, but it arrived with 3,000 soldiers and Maxim guns. On August 3rd, 1904, the British troops were ordered to negotiate. Instead, they brought devastation to peaceful monasteries. When they reached Lhasa in August, they found the city nearly abandoned. To the Tibetans, this wasn't just an invasion, it was a shattering of the sacred. The expedition signed a one-sided treaty, extracting trade rights and tribute, while Tibetans were given no voice. Britain left Lhasa in September. What they left behind was a deep scar, one Tibet has never forgotten. In the muddy fields of California on November 24, 1904, a machine rumbled to life, slow, loud, and unlike anything the world had seen. Benjamin Holt had just installed continuous tracks on a steam tractor, solving a problem that had plagued farmers for decades, sinking in the soil. They called it the Caterpillar because of the way it crawled over terrain. The name stuck and changed the face of warfare and industry. What started in a farm field would go on to carry artillery in World War I, build roads across continents, and reshape transportation forever. The innovation was quiet at first, just another machine in a sea of steam. But history would prove it unstoppable. From muddy farms to global front lines, the Caterpillar didn't just crawl, it conquered. On December 6, 1904, President Theodore Roosevelt stood before Congress and issued a warning to the world. The Monroe Doctrine had warned Europe to stay out of the Americas, but Roosevelt took it further. The U.S. would now intervene before others had a reason to. His message was clear. Chronic wrongdoing may force the United States to exercise international police power. It was the birth of what critics called big stick diplomacy. America wouldn't wait to be provoked. Latin American nations bristled, and European powers took note. Suddenly, the U.S. wasn't just a regional power, it was a global enforcer. The Roosevelt Corollary wasn't just a policy, it was a line in the sand, and the world knew it. On December 10th, 1904, a quiet man in St. Petersburg received a telegram that would immortalize his name in scientific history. The Nobel Committee had just awarded him the prize in physiology or medicine for something most people would never expect: dogs, bells, and saliva. Pavlov wasn't even trying to study psychology. He was researching digestion, but what he discovered would reshape human understanding of the mind. His now famous experiment proved that the brain could learn through repetition, not by thought, but by instinct. This wasn't just about dogs. It opened the door to behaviorism, education, marketing, even military brainwashing. Pavlov once said, "Don't become a mere recorder of facts, but try to penetrate the mystery of their origin." In 1904, he had done exactly that. It began with a handshake in Manchester and changed the way the world moves forever. Henry Royce was the quiet genius, an engineer obsessed with perfection. Rolls, the charismatic aristocrat and daredevil balloonist. On December 23, 1904, their partnership was sparked by a single shared belief: no car should ever break down. By day's end, Rolls agreed to sell every car Royce would build, and so was born the name that still defines excellence. The first car, sleek, silent, and elegant, rolled out not long after. It didn't just run, it glided. Rolls-Royce became more than a machine. It was a promise that nothing should interrupt your journey, not even time. And it all started with one lunch meeting. If you made it this far, thank you. Your support keeps these forgotten moments alive. Please like, comment, and subscribe so more people can discover the history they were never taught.